the home of inspiration every day.
Most people give up on themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful.
From news,
countries across the globe have been hit by the COVID-19 virus.
Views,
there's a global trend to see an increase in GBV incidences, specifically domestic violence.
Sports,
What's he say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala.
and music to inspire you every day. This is Vuga Online, your inspiration radio station.
Hi there, and welcome to all of you listening, no matter which country you're in. You are listening to Healthcare Hour with QVIST. Thank you very much for all your messages during the week. Thank you very much for interacting with all my social media posts. I do appreciate you. And it's always good not to just talk to myself. I always used to tease my students and say, oh, you know, I'm not a radio host that just talks to no one. But of course, I mostly have a guest. What else is happening in your life? Are you coping? Are you looking, as one of my colleagues said, are you looking for the light? Are you looking for the positive and the yay in each day? Because as much as the world is heavy at the moment, there is positive, there is yay. But of course, it needs more mindfulness in us looking for it. When we come back, we're going to meet a coaching colleague of mine who specializes in pain. Yes, in pain. And we're going to hear all about her after the break. But let's go hear from our sponsors.
How do you know the life or personal coach you're about to work with is who they say they are? How do you know if they can do the job? At the Africa Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychology, we can tell you. So, before you share your secrets and spend your money, check with us first. Visit www.abccccp.com or call us on 012-751-7608. The ABCCP, the professional body for coaches.
Welcome back. You're listening to Healthcare Hour with QVIST. My guest today is Narinder Sheena. Before we pop into Narinder, let me just remind you that the show is all about healthcare professionals. It's about us understanding that they are human, that they get hungry, they get tired. Of course, you know that I'm a coach. It's also about us listening and hearing other people's lived experience. It is also for us to improve the relationship between the healthcare professional and the patient, and the healthcare professional and the patient's family. And also, as the public, for us not to sit around like little potatoes and not have any ownership of our own health. So, without any more ramblings from me, let's meet Narinder Sheena. Hello, Narinder.
Hi, Colleen. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm sure people will pick up that there is a UK accent.
There is. I'm from Bromsgrove, which is near Birmingham.
Near Birmingham. Okay, everyone's getting out their maps now going, where on earth is Birmingham? Yes. So yes, I've introduced you as a coach. I've said that you specialize in pain. But before we dive into your niche and what it is and who your clients are, let's talk about Narinder. Who's Narinder?
Yeah, this journey, it's been such a transformation for me. You know, I used to work in a corporate world as a lawyer, and it's strange. I used to work in personal injury, both sides. So I used to act for employees who got injured at work, but also defending cases of low-impact road traffic collisions in terms of fraudulent claims, who used to claim whiplash injuries. Now, my brain was always of the view, okay, maybe the accident has caused the injury, or there might be something ongoing for them. But it wasn't until lockdown when my life really changed everything that I knew. And I'm not ashamed to say that I probably didn't know what chronic pain was. And just for the viewers who are listening, on the audience, that acute pain is something that it's short term. So say you had a fracture, you've had surgery or illness. So it comes up, but with the appropriate rehabilitation, you can heal. A couple of months to a year, that's what they say. But chronic pain is pain that continues. And I recognized, I remember I'd given birth to my second child in the car, actually, of a hospital car park. And that was trauma on my body. But nothing happened after. 7 months later, just before we entered lockdown, I started getting a niggle in my ankle. And I remember just getting out of bed. I thought, oh, it's just staying here for a couple of weeks. And you know that annoying niggle where it's nothing more than that.
In
but
the background.
yeah, it's in the background. And I said to my husband, oh, it stayed here for a couple of weeks. And he said, why don't you just check it out with the doctors? And I'm very reluctant to go to the doctors. I'm very like, oh, I'm all capable and really didn't have a trusting relationship with doctors. But I went because I thought, let's see. And he asked me to just do a few exercises like bend down. There was nothing of asking about how my birth was, which I was expecting. So I just gave short answers back. And he said it may be a herniated disc, but I'll refer you for physiotherapy. You try and see if you can walk it off. And I think, okay, that's not too scary. And obviously I tried to walk it off and it was still there. And I think the real turning point came when I had physiotherapy over Zoom. Now lockdown happened at this point, so everything is shut and everything is like how me and you are. And can you imagine physiotherapy where someone's stony faced and asking certain questions in a like direct way, no compassion, and it's not her fault. You know, something she's probably
She's
not.
also trying to work out how to do physiotherapy over Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. And the first question she asked was, can you touch your toes? And me with my ego was like, yeah, of course I can, you know, but I've got this. And then she started asking various questions, but she said, have you got a tennis ball? Can you do this exercise? And I thought, okay, I'll do it. And the pain, oh my gosh, the pain was excruciating. I can feel it now. That's how bad it was. The pain was excruciating.
I could see it in your face as you were telling me.
When I recollect that moment of thinking nothing's going to happen, because I was not aware of what was happening inside of my body, I was scared then. I was really panicked, thinking, oh my gosh, should the pain go all the way up my right leg and into my lower back? So this was the pain I was getting. And I was telling my husband, what's going on? Maybe the physiotherapist done something wrong. And it wasn't their fault. And what I started to learn was that, you know, I had sciatic pain. I actually had a severe disc prolapse, but I didn't know that until later when I had my MRI consultation. But at that point, I was desperate. I was like, oh my gosh, now I can't touch my toes. Now I can't do this. So on the next Zoom call, I'm panicking and I'm going, please help me. I can't. And her face again was like unsurprising, like, yeah, I knew that was going to happen kind of thing. And so there was no reassurance. And
Yes, no empathy.
No empathy. And it was like
probably just like you when you were the lawyer who didn't know what chronic pain felt like. Yes.
Do you know the bizarre thing is, I remember one of my early cases was a woman, a police officer, who had a disc prolapse, right? And she tripped over a box at work. And me being young and unknowledgeable, I will say that because she knew more of the law than me, I had to interview her and I had to tell her that actually the disc prolapse was not caused by tripping over the box because it happens over a duration of time.
Yes.
And she complained then. I thought, oh gosh, you know, maybe I don't know my stuff, because she wanted to use the box as the cause.
Yes.
Like here, I didn't have any specific cause. I could have said, well, maybe I was in the car and the trauma on my body. Maybe it was due to something else, but there was no real sign. And so I started to learn that actually something's going on and I don't know what's happening in my body, but I was panicked. So I went to chiropractors, I started ringing around, and when lockdown started to ease, I was able to go, but not just one, I was inquiring with 3. So I was like confused because they were telling me, don't walk a lot, don't jog. And I thought, am I broken? Is something happening inside? Because the feelings I got inside my body were alien. I'd never experienced such excruciating pain. And so that's when I started desperately searching on Google for healing back pain and came across Dr. Sano. And this is where my light bulb moment went, okay, maybe it's that. And just to explain, Dr. Sarnold was a physical therapist in America, and he started saying that it's not really the physical aspect, but it's the mental, the whole people-pleasing traits, the whole having subconscious anger, the whole, not looking after ourselves because something else is going on, but we're not consciously aware. And I started sharing that with the physios, and they were like dismissing it, saying, no.
Here comes some wacko who's learned stuff on internet. Yes, okay, ignore her. Yeah.
And so I was in this confused state where I read this book and I was like, I want to share it. And then I was being dismissed. So then I thought, where can I go? And I met this wonderful woman who's actually did the foreword for my book, From Pain to Power,
Okay.
Georgie Oldfield. She said something to me which I'll never forget. And I think it gave me the trust that I didn't have in myself. She said, Narinder, you'll recover. It's just stress-induced. And I went, what? In one aspect, I felt a bit of anger, thinking, how?
Yeah.
It's not my fault.
How dare you say I'm responsible for this pain?
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
on the other hand, I was like, what does she know that I will recover that?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Because at that point, I was not walking. 2 minutes, standing 2 minutes, that is it, because it was so bad. And I remember those words. And at one point, when she was telling me to reframe the fears I had, I thought, okay, maybe this is something I need to look into myself. And I joined an online recovery program because what I started reflecting on is what was happening in my life for this to happen. I'd moved house just before I gave birth. I was looking after another child, toddler. I had lost my father a few years before. But if I recollect, it was more than that. I started having migraines at work a few years before, 2017. That was the year that my father had passed. But I was juggling motherhood.
Yes.
And work. I was juggling frustrations at work and emotions that I couldn't even handle myself.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think I was risk of redundancy. So all these added layers of stress. Because
Yes.
I used to
You don't actually realize they're there. You don't identify them. You don't name them. It's just piled on top without you even knowing.
I was pushing through. I was doing rather than being. And I thought, no, just got to do it. Like they say, be strong. But inside I was broken. I was anxious. I was having all these feelings of, loss, suppressed emotions. And I didn't know where to turn because I used to be debilitated once every couple of weekends. And migraine is a chronic pain. And I didn't realize this, that actually, why are we accepting that? Because we've not had an accident or injury. Why do we accept a headache or migraine to be okay and carry on? And I think it was that whisper in my body that then led to me being debilitated later on because I wasn't listening about my life, my values, and being a coach as well then. I was going back into that same circle that I was previously in, that frustration, that fear, that anxiety. And I didn't know how to break free. So I think the pain, as bad as it was, I knew there was a message in that needed to be told. And I went on this journey where Georgie had given me some more resources. And when you've got a flavor of something,
you
want to dig deep.
I think before we jump into the flavor of something, let's go for a break. And when we come back, we'll jump back into the flavor of things. But let's go for a break.
The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is a professional development center for professionals who aim to improve their professional standing. This means that the learning programs we run are more than just academic programs. They are work-based programs that focus on leveraging your current experience as a professional to build your overall profile. A year down the line, the Africa Center for Work-Based Learning is developing into a preferred center for professional development in Pretoria, with 8 professional development faculties including accounting, teaching, entrepreneurship, as well as IT and many more. For more information, go to acwbl.org or dial +27 12 751 7608. The Africa Center for Work-Based Learning, where work is learning.
Welcome back. You're listening to Healthcare Hour with Colleen QVIST. My guest today is Narinder Sheena, and she is talking to us about her own journey with pain and how she was ignoring the whispers in her body and in her mind, and how they have manifested as pain. But yes, let's go back to those whispers, Narinder.
Yeah, I think a lot of the work, it's not easy to do. And I remember doing a timeline from my childhood up until the point of I'm struggling. And I wasn't mentally struggling. You know, the anxiety, the depression of having two children, feeling all alone, even though I wasn't, I had my husband to support me.
Mhm.
And then the physical debilitation, I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed that can anyone see me in this way? Because I've always been capable on the outside.
Yeah.
And I think the confusion and fear was from some of the healthcare professionals, and it's not their fault. On one hand, a physiotherapist hinting at surgery and saying it quite straightforward, where some of the chiropractors were like, we've never recommended surgery. So it was like, who do I believe? Where do I go next?
And then you've also got conflicting messages, and then you go like, okay, so now which way do we turn?
And, you know, I was going to a massagist. I was thinking maybe that might help. Someone was telling me to do recommended exercises. I was like, I can hardly move. And it was like this struggle of, well, how have I ended up here? Because at that time I was feeling broken. And that's when I started to read the books. And I started getting hope from going on to private groups of people who recovered. I needed that belief and embed it in my brain. So I started reaching out to other people, other authors. There's a great book by Stephen Ozenich, The Great Pain Deception. And I said, Stephen, all the gyms are closed and what do I do? And he goes, that's a good thing. He goes, now you can start being rather than doing. And he goes, if thousands of others have recovered, why can't you? I was no different, but because the pain we experience feels so different, like we're alone in it. And that was such a great way of putting it. But what I started to realize is if we've gained that pain without any accident or injury, we can unlearn the pain. This is something Howard Schubiner talks about, of the neural pathways misfiring. And as soon as I started understanding that concept, I started going, oh, so I should have pain as a protector. It's a friend, but I should continue doing the things I enjoy. And I realized I wasn't enjoying life. You know, I was socially isolated. I was in a job that I didn't really want to go back to, which I didn't. I was on maternity leave at the time. But I started doing a tracker, I started journaling, and that was really beneficial to really express any emotions. And I used to chuck away whatever I wrote down after the end of the day. So I didn't want to revisit it, and started to notice any patterns about myself. I started doing some meditation. And I started building up my confidence again. And I cancelled all medical treatment. That was a huge thing because one thing I learned was it was when I was having the medical treatment that my anxiety, that my pain had increased. And I was fearful to cancel everything, but I was medically cleared of anything else. So I cancelled it. And I started before I had my consultation. It's strange. I could not walk very far. And the neurosurgeon was like, yep, surgery. And no word of a lie, 4 days after that consultation, I walked for nearly 20 minutes. And I thought, wow. And I heard about people saying the brain needs a diagnosis sometimes. But if you saw my MRI scan, it showed a severe disc prolapse. And the key thing to learn here is the scan was not indicative of the pain I felt. So you can have two MRI scans, one person feels the same, but that pain, and one doesn't. So it's all stems from our brain, and that neuroplasticity part is something we need to embed a lot more. That actually, what are our beliefs? Where has this come from? And you know, you were saying about chronic pain. It's one thing to understand is you can have pain for a number of years. In this country, a lot of times people are told to manage or live with it. I'm
Just
here
live with
to
it. It's your lot in life.
Mm,
You'll come to terms with it.
mm. I'm here to say no. I'm here to say no. No chance. And I know that sounds really strange, and I try not to put that out there too much, but I'm going to say actually you can heal. Because the healing is not the physical. I'd say here, what's our environment like? Are we going through some financial struggle? Is there some mental impact from not just yourself, but who are your family members? You know, I grew up with my mum, and I think this was a turning point. When I was 5, I witnessed my mum have a mental breakdown at my grandparents' house, and I packed it away for years. But I realized I had a hypervigilant nervous system. And when I started recognizing that, I went, oh, what would I have wanted at that age? Would I wanted someone to have hugged me and said, it's okay.
Yes.
You need to share that, because I didn't. I never shared it.
Mommy's sick at the moment, but mommy will get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I changed my personality to suit everything, to suit everyone, and neglected who I was. And I think that's significant when you think, well, actually, I didn't realize I was being that way, neglecting my own self-care. And once I started recognizing that, I thought, this isn't your fault. You didn't bring it on yourself. It's what has happened, that there was only so much my brain or my emotions could take before it physically manifested. And that's where I took that leap of faith, where I went, if I heal from this, I'm going to support other people. I'm going to change my own life. I'm going to bring joy back and fun back, because it's really important. We forget as children who we were. And, you know, I started writing a tracker down of how my emotions were, what my rewards were, what little wins I was having along the way. And at the time I thought I just need a bit of a holding hand, you know. And I got a health coach from LA, a great woman called COLLEEN. And the reason I got her, I don't know whether you do this, so I don't do lots of research. I go with my intuition. And I realized she healed after 16 years of pain, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. You know, she had a lot of symptoms. So she's a lived health coach, and that's who I want to go with. And the support was second to none. And, you know, every time she championed me on when I felt like, oh, I've got a setback. And you're going to get setbacks, because sometimes there's days where you get excited, you go, I can do much more. Then you're in pain for a couple of days. And the thing with pain is it's like that. But it's about understanding your body and your energy levels and where you are. And when someone asked me saying, well, when did you recover? How long did it take? And I thought, gosh, because I was in so much in the process, I didn't realize. And I can't say to someone, it takes one thing. It depends on who you are as a person.
Yeah.
For me,
it depends on, you know, just as much as there's a journey going into pain, there's also a journey going out of pain.
Yeah. And the best thing is, because we make pain the whole picture.
Yes.
We make it bigger than us.
Yeah.
And it is difficult, but sometimes you have to go through the pain. I actually believe go through it. Don't avoid it. You avoid it, you will stay in that pain. Just imagine if you could go through it and come out the other side to see what's possible.
Yeah.
And so that's what I started doing. And the work I do now, like I wrote a book to channel my journey, but also with all the tools and resources that I picked up along the way.
Yeah. Okay, so after the break, we'll hear more about your book, also what you do with clients who can contact you. Obviously, people listening to us from America or South Africa or Russia, for instance, can contact you, because I'm sure it's an online process.
Yes.
But we'll hear more after the break.
How do you know the life of personal coach you're about to work with is who they say they are? How do you know if they can do the job? At the Africa Board for Coaching, Consulting and Coaching Psychology, we can tell you. So, before you share your secrets and spend your money, check with us first. Visit www.abccccp.com or call us on 012-751-7608. The ABCCP, the professional body for coaches.
Welcome back. You're listening to Healthcare Hour with Colleen QVIST. My guest today is Narinder Sheena. She has been sharing her own lived experience of pain. Also has explained to us that, or shared with us, that she worked as a lawyer who worked with personal injury claims, and she really had no understanding of what chronic pain feels like, of how it erodes someone's life. And then she entered into the part of her life where she had her own chronic pain, and also about saying, okay, well, this is it now, as opposed to saying no. So she started looking around, looking for somebody she could work with, different modalities, and also realizing that in pain, the brain needs resetting. And so she set off to reset her own brain. You've written a book. It's called Pain to Power.
Yeah, here it is. I love the physical feel of that book. So I
Yes.
always
We'll have to feel it across the kilometers here, or as you would say, miles. Yes.
and this book, it has I had a section in there about the chronology of events for me as well.
Yeah.
And it focused on things like visualization. You know, things that when I was an NLP practitioner, it's like I forgot everything. But when I had this pain, I used the tools to help me. So I'd visualize in the mornings. How did I used to jump out of bed? Can I do that for a moment before I get out of bed? There were times when I was on the floor and I was so much in pain because I used to cry and I had to sleep there. But I thought, how am I going to get myself out? I can either cry and keep on this, or I can take accountability and think of ways. And I think when I was having the health coaching, as well as doing all my research and support from other medical experts, it really gave me confidence. And knowing other people out there were healing as well. Like, belief can take a long time. If you don't believe, I think it takes much more difficult to heal.
More convoluted route.
Yeah, I mean, I've had clients who want to heal. Like I've had one who did well and wanted to heal, but because it might mean that they transform them whole self, they might break relationships that might be difficult for them to break. I've had people who've had pain for so long that if they got rid of that pain, who are they then?
Who would they be after? So it's almost like pain becomes your identity. It's like, you said in the beginning that pain is the whole story. And that's unfortunately that pain sometimes becomes people's identity of that's it, I'm the person in pain.
I had one client, I remember I did a workshop and she said, I've had 12 years of chronic back pain and been to all the medical system and exhausted it. She goes, this resonates with me. So we were coaching together. And the one thing that never came up in all the coaching sessions was the pain. It was everything around it, because everything matters. And she's over 80% pain-free. And she notices when she's pain-free. So I think a lot of this is, a lot of the people that come for coaching is when they're desperate, when they've exhausted everything else. They might even have had surgery, where medical experts have even stated that even surgery for chronic pain is not always the best solution, because if people have a heightened nervous system or anxious, the outcome won't be as good. So it's recognizing a lot of things, but it depends on your environment. If you have people around you who've had surgery, they might recommend it and you might go in. So it's really a fine balance. And I obviously I've worked with chronic pain, neurodiverse individuals as well in the workplace who suppress emotions, or they get migraines, backache, fibromyalgia, but they're all reversible if they understood that actually you will need to take some action if your mindset is in the right space. And I say that because if you're so overwhelmed, you're not going to be in that position to be ready to make a change. But if you feel curious and you go, yeah, I'm fed up now, I do want to do something. It doesn't mean you have to do, like a marathon, you're going to get there. It's just small increments.
Small little increments.
Yeah.
Consistently.
And that's it. And that's how coaching works. It's not to say I'm the expert. We're here to partner together to help you. Like I set up an online pain cafe, but one in the community. Why? Because there's people around the world that need this support. They don't know where to find resources.
Yeah. And I think also, you live with chronic pain every single day. It erodes you, your personality, you become bad-tempered, you become, miserable kind of. And it's almost like, okay, so your online pain cafe where people can reach out to you. I know that you host it from 7 to 8:30, isn't it? UK time.
Yes.
Okay, on a specific day?
Yeah, so it's the last Wednesday of the month.
Last Wednesday of the month.
Yeah.
Okay, so also reach out to Narinder if you're interested in her pain cafe. Sounds weird. Sounds like we go for coffee and we get paid. But it's also about, also understand that that's UK time. Remember that clocks around the world change. So depending on when you're listening to this and which country you live in, please check to see what UK time is. Yes. How else, like a client comes to you, what would the process be? Of course, we've established online, so you don't have to get on a plane and go visit you from anywhere.
So I have a framework, like my business is called Map Coach Mind Action Progress, but there's steps before that and after that. And I always go with the awareness and understanding first off. Like, how much are they aware about pain? Because pain can be seen as the enemy, the whole constant barrier, because that's all we believed as we were young. But it's really getting that concept of the neuroplasticity. Do you know that pain can change? You know, that it's not permanent, it's not fixed if it's chronic pain. So really getting that understanding embedded first of all. And so when they have a session, we'll do a coaching session and then I'd provide some resources after for them to read. It's not homework, but it's really beneficial if they're on that journey of, I really want to do something about it. But it's really finding out, does that client really want to change initially? Because I do a half an hour complimentary call just to check. Are they in the right state of mind, or are they still in the medical process? Because if they're still there dabbling, going, well, I'm still waiting for appointment and I've got this, I'm going to go for surgery. Yeah. It's all about timing. And so each individual is different. And then I'll talk about, it's all about the belief. If you don't 100% believe, thinking, I've got the power within me, I can actually fix myself. It's not external validation. And again, we come up with things that's relevant for the client. I had one client that values came up for them, or there was something in their family that made them a people pleaser, that made them anxious. Time, there could have been a parent, so you've got children in the mix as well now. So it's all completely relative. And then we look on the mindset, where are you currently? We could do the scaling. We might not out of 10, like, how determined are you? What would it take? What would 6 months from now look like for you? And for some people, that's a powerful question because they can't see that far ahead. They can only see day to day. So what would you like?
Or I think also they see tomorrow as yesterday.
Yeah.
And yesterday was a 9. So tomorrow will also be a 9 on the pain scale. Yes.
And really getting that whole point of becoming aware, noticing when you have pain-free times. I always ask, but did you feel pain then when you were gathering or having a laugh with your friends? When was the last time you had joy? So coming up with questions that are real, that we don't recognize, because we always, with pain, you stop doing the things you enjoy. You stop socializing. You might stop going outside of the house. So
and I think also people stop moving.
Moving is a big thing in any way. And it's not about hitting the gym. It's just moving out of, can you move out of bed?
No, it's moving out of your chair or moving out of your bed. Yes.
Can you get your clothes on?
Yeah.
Okay. How difficult?
People don't realize getting dressed or undressed is moving.
I remember now, I was sharing this the other day, Colleen, I was really severely in pain when I walked, and I walked to the swimming baths because I wanted to give it a go. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to change afterwards? And that's all that kept on going in my head.
Yes.
Got to the swimming baths, and there was this man, and both of his legs were amputated, and he jumped out of his wheelchair into the swimming pool in the fast lane. And it gave me the motivation to think, Narinder, what are you worrying about?
Yeah.
You're able-bodied, and look at this gentleman that's just swam in the fast lane while I was limping away, and I was thinking all these things.
Yeah.
Of adapting. And I think those are real issues. Like thinking, can I sit for long in a car? I could not When I went for my MRI scan, so I could hardly drive properly because when I was braking, the nerve pain was excruciating. But I thought, I gotta do it. And when I got there, I was still limping and I couldn't go on the MRI scan for longer than 10 minutes. I had to get off. And they saw my face and it was that look of sorrow, and that sympathy. And I thought, this is breaking me. And that pain is real. And I see that etched on people's faces that I go, I hear you, I do see you. And I remember when I was in the corporate world as a team leader, I had a young guy who had apparently told arthritis in the hip. And although we gave him all the reasonable adjustments, I still didn't truly understand until I went through it.
Yeah. Okay, so Narinder, certainly fascinating. I think we just scratched the surface of pain and what it means to live with chronic pain. But your ultimate message is telling people that there is hope. You don't have to live with this pain forever. You can reset your brain through different techniques, and certainly working with you, and to reach out, to read your book, and to come for the 30-minute complimentary session.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think it's great to give. I mean, I always give free advices on my private Facebook groups anyway. I share insights rather than advice. What worked for me, because it's not about trying everything, it's just doing one thing at a
It's
time.
about mentoring and you sharing, so coaching and mentoring from the perspective of you sharing what worked for you, what was your lived experience, but also seeing how people can adapt it to their lives then.
Yeah, and to know that there is hope, that there, I mean, there's thousands of us that have healed. And it's not to say that pain will never come back, of course it does, but it's then you've got the tools of self-care, which is the last part of where I go with mindset, action, progress. Because with momentum, you go from one thing to the next, and then you have self-care. What's in your toolkit that will, if you ever did have a setback or flare up, that where can you go to know that it's a safe sensation?
Yes. Okay, so thank you very much for being our guest today, Narinder.
Thank you for having me, Colleen.
Pleasure. All right, so all of you out there, please know that your pain is not there forever. Please make sure that you take action, that you see what you can do about it. Please also remember that you're loved, you matter, and you're not alone. You've been listening to Healthcare Hour with COLLEEN QVIST. I'll see you all next week.
The home of inspiration every day.
Most people give up on themselves easily. You know the human spirit is powerful.
From news,
Countries across the globe have been hit by the COVID-19 virus.
views,
There's a global trend to see an increase in GBV incidences, specifically domestic violence.
sports,
What's he say? It's a really good ball. It's Shabalala.
and music to inspire you every day. This is Vuga Online, your inspiration radio station.